All right, everybody. I am here today to give you a little bit more detailed instructions on the written assignment that I've just posted. And I know that some of you are wanting to work on this probably over the weekend. It is due after fall break, October 16th. But we're not going to talk about it much more in class. If you have questions in class, make sure you ask. But I wanted to give you some additional guidance beyond what we've already discussed. So I'm going to jump in here into Blackboard. It's already posted. And it'll look the same whether you're in the Tuesday, Thursday, 9:30 class, the Monday, Wednesday, 9:30 class, or the Monday, Wednesday, 11 a.m. class. So if you scroll down, you can see the written assignment right here. You're going to click on it, and it's going to bring up the assignment eventually. And it's going to say View Assessment, and we're going to click this, and things are running just a tad bit slow, my internet today, and here we go. Here are the instructions, okay? Let me also move that down just a tad bit. Right about there is going to be best I can do. So, a few things to point out. I will grade your paper based on the following under the direction provided in the grading rubric, okay? So this is how I grade everything that you do in class, written assignment type of work. You haven't had a whole lot, we all know that, but this is what I use to grade everything. So if you want to get a good grade, this is the kind of stuff you need to do. Your thoughts, ideas, and answers well developed. You thoroughly address the questions posed on the assignment and exhibit an understanding of the pertinent sociological concepts and ideas. Few, if any, grammatical or punctuation errors. So the higher end, like if you were to get 100%, you did all these things right. It's on this written assignment, I'm going to hold your feet a little bit closer to the fire. So honestly, I don't anticipate anybody getting 100%. So just to kind of give you an idea about how I'm approaching this, you got to do it right. It's got to be done well. And make sure you look at this because this is how your grade is going to be computed, okay? So that's the first thing. And so now we're going to go back in here into the assignment. It's going to be graded according to that. Now here's what you have to have in your paper. You have to have an introduction. You have to have 2 or more concepts addressing Chapter 3, 2 or more concepts addressing Chapter 4, and 2 or more concepts addressing Chapter 6, and then ending with a conclusion, okay? So for this assignment, please be sure to visit this link for overall guidance and instructions. So the grading rubric, and then also the guidance and instructions here. So here, this is basically telling you double space, 12-point font, develop your work, etc. Okay? No copying. You do not have to provide sources on this assignment. And in these instructions, it talks about providing sources, but for this assignment, you don't have to because I know the sources. And so I'm not going to go through all of this, but you need to go through all of it, okay? So I've got 2 links here that you got to be familiar with prior to doing this work, prior to turning it in at least. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. I'm going to kind of scroll up here a little bit so you can see it on your screen. It says, the purpose of this assignment is for you to demonstrate your understanding of terms and concepts from chapters 3, 4, and 6. Your task is to connect the dots using material from each of these 3 chapters. You should use lecture notes, presentations found in the weekly schedule. So there's a PowerPoint for chapters 3, 4, and 6 in the corresponding week. You can use that. And your textbook. Please only use these materials. I don't want you to get lost in doing research outside of what it is that you need to do. Just focus on your textbook. Focus on lecture notes. If you've done lecture notes like you were supposed to, you really have got a perfect guide as to what you need to write about, okay? Because I really want you to write about what we talked about in class. So again, the purpose of this assignment is for you to connect the dots of chapters 3, 4, and 6. Chapter 3 is a chapter on socialization. Chapter 4 is a chapter on social interaction in everyday life. And chapter 6 we just completed on groups and organizations. It goes on to say, do not copy and or paste material into this assignment. That's kind of hard to do, and I want to talk about that just a little bit. You need to paraphrase your work. You should not have any sentence as it is listed in the textbook in your assignment. Paraphrase everything. So you shouldn't have anything that you've copied directly from PowerPoints. If you've written down lecture notes, and as long as those are your words, then you can certainly do that. Do not provide any direct quotes from the textbook or presentations. Any paper that is plagiarized will result in a 0 and will be evaluated for potential violation of student conduct. Let me also tell you that up here, I've enabled what's called Safe Assign. So your paper, once you turn it in, once you submit it, this service here in Blackboard is going to scan your paper and make sure you've not pulled anything off the internet. So this is serious business. So, don't try to, do shortcuts. I would suggest thinking of this assignment as a long essay written assignment, but not as a research paper. You should provide a minimum of 3 pages, no more than 5. And the format is listed up here in the instructions. So the flow of your work, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. This is why I'm doing this video, because I'm not going to talk about this in class. You're going to need to be watching this video. The flow of your work should be as follows. First, you start your paper with a paragraph describing what it is I'm about to read. That's the introduction. I would recommend not writing the introduction until after you've written a paper. So what I like to do myself when I write a paper like this is I like to have an outline, and I'm not requiring you to have an outline, but it really is helpful to me to have an outline of what I'm going to talk about. And then write the body of the work. And then once I'm really happy with that, I've edited it and gone back and reread it and finalized it. Then I go back and write the introduction based upon what's in the paper. So the introduction should be probably between 3 and 5 sentences for a paragraph. It doesn't need to be half a page. It doesn't need to be all that long. It's an introduction to what it is I'm about to read. So for me, when I write a paper, I know what it is that you're about to read if I write the introduction. But if I write the introduction before I write the paper, sometimes the introduction doesn't match what's in the paper. So we just want to kind of pull all the dots together to connect all of the dots. And that's one way of doing the introduction. I would recommend doing it that way. Now then, let's talk about how you approach this. This might sound like a lot of work, and some people that have not written many papers might think 3 to 5 pages is a little bit of work, and I'm going to tell you why it's not a lot of work. First of all, you have an introduction. That's going to be about a paragraph, and it might be up to a half a page. Then you've got 2 or more concepts from chapters 3 and 4 and 6. If you're going to do 2 or more concepts from chapter 3, that's going to be at least 2 paragraphs, at least half a page. So that's at minimum. I mean, you can't really do very good work, in my opinion, by addressing 2 or more concepts from one chapter in half a page. So you're probably going to have close to a full page. So if you do that 3 times, that's 3 pages right there, even before you take in the introduction and the conclusion. So this is not difficult to do. Okay, now here is how I'm going to recommend you do this. And I'm going to go back to looking at myself on the screen here, or letting you look at me. So I want you to see me, okay? So what I would recommend that you do is go to chapter 3 and identify some stuff that we've talked about. Also, I only want sociology. So in chapter 3, there's a little bit of psychology stuff. I don't even want that in the paper. Don't do that. This is not a psychology class. I want sociology. And kind of on that theme, I want more sociology than I want a creative writing paper. So how to approach this is a bit of a fine line. I want you to identify concepts from each chapter that you want to talk about, and I want it all to kind of go together. I want the stuff that you talk about from chapter 3 to be related to chapter 4, and that to be related to chapter 5. I want all that to go together, and I've told you all that chapters 3, 4, and 6 go together. And so, this paper is a way of kind of summarizing what we've covered the last 3 chapters. So you go to chapter 3 and you identify 2 or more concepts. I would recommend go to the section on George Herbert Mead's Self. I don't have my book in front of me. I can't tell you what page that is. But we spent about a day and a half talking about 2 or 3 of those pages. So identify a couple of terms, and then how you would do this in your papers, you would say, okay, starting out on chapter 3, I'm going to talk about this term or concept. According to your textbook, the term is this. Now, don't write the definition as is in the textbook. You need to summarize it in your own words. But introduce the concept, and then you can say, some examples of this would be this, 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 and this. You're going to do that for every concept that you do from each chapter. You're going to, from chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 6, you're going to say, in this chapter, I'm going to identify, or I'm going to talk about this concept and this concept. The first concept is this, and it means this, 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 and this. Some examples of this are this, 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 and this. The next concept I'm going to illustrate from chapter 3 is this, and it means this, this, this. It's related to the first concept in this way. And then you're going to go on to chapter 4. In chapter 4, I'm going to talk about this concept and this concept. First off, this concept means this, blah, 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 blah. It's related to the content that I covered in chapter 3 in this way. It's also related to the second concept I'm going to talk about from this chapter, which is blank, in this way. This concept means this, blah, 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 blah. So when I say I want the sociology, I want the stuff from the textbook, from the lecture notes, and from the PowerPoint. Okay? That's the sociology. Now I want you to illustrate your understanding of it by talking about it. Okay? I want, be careful. I want the sociology. I don't want this to be a creative writing paper. So you're going to have to list terms and illustrate them. And you got to do that for each chapter. Now, I was suggesting your conclusion, the conclusion wraps up what you've talked about. And that might be 2 paragraphs or more. So the conclusion would be, in conclusion, I have spoken about these concepts from chapters 3, these from chapters 4, these from chapters 5. These all go together when we think about blah, 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 blah. You can write about that. Okay, that is the additional guidance I wanted to give you. And I think that really does help you write the paper if you watch this video, and you're allowed to go back and watch this as many times as need be. Just click the link and it'll open up and you can rewatch it as much as you need to. And then certainly let me know if you have questions. We'll talk about it in class next week. And you can send a remind message as well if you have other questions. So good luck with everything. Sorry we canceled class. I've had a child with strep throat now for going on 3 weeks. We can't get rid of it. So I'm doing what a parent is supposed to do. So thank you for your understanding and your patience, and I'll see you next week.